Downstate.
Still got a lot to talk about.
We got a lot to talk about, and this one is particularly repugnant. So this is a play. It's called Downstate, and this is from the Washington Post. So I want you to, in fact, I don't even want to say this because I don't want to get clipped. But it's Downstate is a play about pedophiles, and according to the Washington Post, it's brilliant. Yes, that is the world we live in today, ladies and gentlemen. It says, take a deep breath and try to ruminate calmly on the position playwright Bruce Norris takes in his scintillating new play, Downstate, that the punishments inflicted on some pedophiles are so harsh and unrelenting as to be humane. So
Inhumane,
not
humane. So here's the gist, guys. This is about a group of convicted child predators who are living post their prison sentences in a halfway home together that has poor conditions, whatever. And you are introduced to each one of them, and it particularly focuses on the oldest convict in this halfway house and a confrontation that he has with his now adult victim named Andy. So they have this confrontation where this journalist says we are meant to wonder if Andy is marinating in self-pity. Absolutely.
The victim?
Yes.
Yes, the idea is that the victim is they're literally playing that the victim is somehow overthinking the fact that he was abused by someone.
By looking for closure in a conversation with his molester, Fred.
The first thing that I thought of when I saw all this
we're supposed to be like judgmental of Andy because they wrote his character to be annoying.
The first thing I thought of was the quote says, "Don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out." Right? Mm-hmm. Is that not what this kind of like? Look, I am the most. I would like to think that I am as open-minded as anyone, but this is a push to normalize this type of thing. It is. I don't see this any other way. I mean,
obviously, yeah. But it's like, are you going to write a play that sympathizes with children who were victimized?
Yeah.
No, because then journalists at the Washington Post and blue check people on Twitter would not be able to post about how it's a beautiful masterpiece and they are enlightened for understanding its artistic merits when in reality, like, everyone else is tired of the nuance because you're adding nuance only to situations that don't need it. And then when much smaller offenses are on the table, like someone making a politically incorrect misstep, none of the nuance is allowed to be involved. So
very interesting.
We're just tired of it.
I also feel like there's not actually the nuance that they want here. Like, yeah, it's sad when people get treated inhumanely. On the other hand, like, to say that committing crimes against children is just something that you can like do time for and be rehabilitated from is a stretch. Like, there's no evidence to back that up. It's not like, shoplifting or petty theft or something else. Like, there are crimes that are an indication of your psychology, and they are not something that, it's not that I think the American justice system as it is, or at least the prison system, is necessarily the best for rehabilitating people, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, like, do we all fundamentally believe that you can be rehabilitated from anything? Because I can't say that I do. I think there are some things that, like, you can't come back from, and abusing children is definitely one of them.
Are we ever going to get the movie that shows Harvey Weinstein in an empathetic light? Is that going to happen? I can answer that question. The answer is no.
That's another point that I wanted to bring up is, like, with all of the media and the aftermath of Me Too, are we going to see something where they flip the script about adult female victims, that they marinate in self-pity? That's insane. But somehow it's acceptable when we're talking about people who were victimized as children. And that's how I think that the Me Too movement got hijacked in the first place, to solely focus on adult female victims rather than the multitude of cases in Hollywood where children are specifically targeted.
Think about even Kim Kardashian. Like, I'm reevaluating my relationship with Balenciaga
because there's so much nuance.
Because there's so much nuance there. But these companies will cut ties with individuals because they say the wrong thing on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Like, it is backwards, and it only, like you said, it only goes one way. And the other thing that I think is funny about it is these questions are used as social weapons to, first of all, we've turned the word tolerance into something that doesn't actually mean what it means. It means that you now not only have to tolerate something, you have to like it too. Not liking it is not tolerant to them. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't
even
like
the word tolerate is like, this is an evil that I am abiding by because I have to.
So who are the people going to these plays other than rich New York, elitist New Yorkers?
Dude, literally, I saw this tweet from this guy called Paul Rudnick NY. He lives in New York. He is a critic and a playwright. And he said, Bruce Norris's play Downstate, now at Playwrights Horizons in New York City, is a miracle of writing, acting, and directing. It's harrowing, funny, thrilling, and everything that great theater can be. Do not miss. And then someone replied, miracle is the perfect word to get a play like this to work. I love bold risk-taking. This is why I love theater. Like, you are disgusting.
I would love to go through their Twitters and see what they say about, like, Republicans. I guarantee you there's none of that bold nuance or any of that type of distinction amongst people they disagree with.
Yeah. Where's a play that casts, I don't know, alt-writers in a sympathetic light? That would never happen.
I have a good story about that, but I'll tell you off air. I think that this is such a strange side to take. Like, I firmly believe, like, especially when there are taboo subjects or things that make you uncomfortable, it's good to talk about them. So I'm not 110% opposed to a play about people who abuse children. I just think that we shouldn't glorify them, right? Like, you know, Fred, this character has been badly beaten in prison, and obviously that's terrible. On the other hand, like, he was in prison for molesting children, right? Like, this is not just like some random guy who got beat up on the street, and he inflicted serious suffering on another person that we are now told is just kind of annoying. Like, to a certain extent, I feel like this narrative of, like, some people get to say the things that you did to me are wrong forever, and some other people have to get over them is a very strange stance for the Washington Post to take. Again, I think that there are a lot of mediums to explore, you know, taboo topics, and I think that's part of art's role in society. But, like, let's not decide that the actual very clear victim, like, there's no nuance in who suffered here.
It's really rich that the art world's, there's a dollar bill on you. It's really rich that the art world's answer to a victim of this kind of crime is pull yourself up by your bootstraps, when in any other situation that would be unfathomable for them to message. And then
why are kids always the victims of this stuff?
Well, because they're satanic.
But, like, I'm asking.
That's like
Andy,
a whole other.
Andy is like.
I'm asking rhetorically.
In the scene where Andy confronts Fred, Andy being the victim, in case anyone forgot, we're supposed to, like, see that he is out of touch because he now, in his line of work in finance, enjoys certain physical comforts that Fred does not, because Fred is disabled after getting beat up in prison over his crimes. Fred is also, you know, living in this halfway home where he is socioeconomically disadvantaged. And we're supposed to think that his suffering as someone who is just materially poor is more meaningful than Andy's suffering as now an adult who has to process the trauma that he experienced as a child getting sexually violated.
But he's got money, so it's okay.
But he's a rich finance guy who's a white male, a straight white male.
Notice they say, which, by the way, just using the term finance guy is automatically framing. Like, the framing of it is automatically that if
you have a stereotype.
He's a white cis straight male in the finance
That's
world.
why I say this play is trying to argue that, like, our criminal justice system is broken and that we continue to punish people after they have served time, right? But I'll return to my original thesis. Like, this kind of crime doesn't just go away, and its damage is forever. So no, I don't necessarily feel bad that someone who is convicted of this kind of crime continues to suffer even when they are not in prison, because I don't know that there's an amount of time that you actually come back from this, right? Like, it's not the same thing.
The show, The Good Doctor did an episode on MAPS in which they portray MAPS in a sympathetic light, and a lot of people got understandably extremely outraged at that. And this is what I talk about, incremental. They are pushing you little by little to not just understand that this person, you can see that this person did awful things and understand that they're suffering now. I still don't have any, I'm one of those people that's like, look, you make your decisions in life and you reap the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that I am more empathetic and sympathetic than a lot of people, but even for something like this, even I draw the line there. I'm like, look, you made your choices. You made
a choice that affected someone who was not old enough you specifically targeted a victim who was in a capacity that they would not be able to help themselves. They cannot properly advocate themselves. They cannot stop you, probably physically, right? They're smaller than you. Like, it is horrific.
But this is only a couple steps away from them saying, well, minors can consent to this type of thing because everything's a social construct anyways. So what does it matter? Like, this is all, and this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, and we're going to go into it more when we talk about Cara Delevingne. What I think of most of this stuff, beyond just the vile nature of what they're trying to normalize here, is that this is a conscious effort on behalf of maybe not this guy in particular, but definitely the people who greenlit this, who allowed this to come to life. This is an attempt on their part to destabilize the world around you and make it feel like there are no actual morals or things beneath your feet that make the world feel solid and as if it's actually like you have a firm grasp of the world around you. Whether we like it or not, 20, 30 years ago, maybe to varying degrees, we had an understanding of what the world was, and there was a fairly concrete example of good and evil. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was naive in a lot of cases. You could make the argument, especially when we talk about war, what is good and evil. But nowadays, it's like it is the postmodern effect of everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that this guy's evil, it's that he's misunderstood.
Well, and I think that's
He's
why,
evil.
to return to something we said earlier in the show, I think that's why you see a lot of teens leaning more conservative, right? Like, this newest generation is at a point they are experiencing the effects of a society that was like, all morality has gray areas and we have to have empathy for everything under the sun. I feel like at this point we're seeing younger generations say, like, no, some things are black and white. Like, some crimes are just unforgivable.
Well, there is black and white. It's when you say mean things on Twitter against people.
I didn't finish reading the article, but like, none of the people living in this halfway house are chemically castrated, right? Like, that was a punishment for people who abused and attacked children in this manner for a long time, like, which got talked down because it was considered inhumane. Like, we as a society have struggled with a long time with how to deal with this, and like, the fact that like there is even a version of this where like, yeah, there's a whole house of people who are convicted of these crimes who hang out together, and yeah, it's not like a great scenario, it's not wonderful, but on the other hand, like, they're not in prison for life. Like, at what point are we sort of thinking like, that's okay? That sounds horrible, but like, we have to see when some crimes are not ones that you do time for and just walk away from, right?
Yeah. There needs to be that level of some level of concreteness.
The victim in this can never walk away, right?
It's just, whether it's the Balenciaga campaign with the BDSM teddy bears and the court documents hidden under a designer handbag, or it's Downstate adding this much needed gray area. People are tired of being told that they don't recognize the nuance in a situation that is the most severe power imbalance you can imagine. But then in any other situation, it's all about power plus privilege. You are 100% condemned for life if you say something mean online.
Moby leaves Twitter because alt-right people are saying mean things on the internet.
Real people and not journalists and film critics and playwrights who live in New York City are tired of hearing that they are morally compromised because they don't recognize the gray area in a situation like this. There isn't a gray area. Even if there is, I'm really not interested in exploring it through art.
Maybe that's the question. It's like the question is, why would you want to explore it?
Why is that? And really, why is that the exclusive
to this
gray area or nuance that we are told to explore?
Why is there no gray? Yeah,
there
why
is
don't we
no
explore
other content focusing on any other morally compromised individuals.
Yep.
And then I saw this tweet that was like, oh, well, if we can accept that there was a Netflix series about Jeffrey Dahmer, then I think that we can all calm our titties about this Downstate play. Like, but that's not the same thing. Everyone who watched the Dahmer series understands that these are heinous crimes that should never be repeated and that should be unequivocally condemned.
And some of the Dahmer objections, from what I remember at it, was like that the victims' families weren't involved, like that because it's not fictional the way Downstate is fictional.
He reached out to all the families and none of them responded.
And like this becomes the ethical question, like, do they need to be involved? Like, is it okay to profit off of someone else's tragedy? That kind of stuff. Downstate is fictional, which means someone was like, I'm specifically going to write about this on purpose. I'm not documenting
the story needs to be told.
Yes, and like whether it was Pam McKinnon, the director, or whether it was the playwright's original intention for basically the victim to come off as like this person who's wallowing in self-pity without justification, like it remains to be seen, right? Because we should acknowledge that because it's theater, the director does play a huge role in how some of the actors take directions or some of the staging or whatever, which can influence how you see characters. I personally feel like it's not a direct comparison to the Dahmer situation because this is a work of fiction. This just was someone saying like, I think this side of this story needs to be told because I believe it has merit.
I also believe that this is one of those things where, look, this director the writer of this play could be a normal person who just thought this was an interesting story. Sure, I don't agree with that, but it's not him that I necessarily think is causing all the problems. It's the studio that approves it. It's all the steps it has to make through. It's one thing to have a thought and write a story. It's another thing for a major corporation or conglomerate to say this is a story worth telling to massive amounts of people.
In a similar vein, I wanted to discuss Hollywood's rehabilitation of Kevin Spacey, who now has 12 pending allegations against him of sexual misconduct or assault. And he has just been casted as a voice actor in a new movie called Control. The production company is rather small, and that's why some people were saying this might actually be more of a win for cancel or accountability culture because he has been casted to the bottom of the barrel. But at the same time, it's insane that with this much mounting evidence against him, Hollywood is rather unconcerned.
Well, evidence by virtue
with
of
they're unconcerned with the liability that these pending claims present to them as a production company. You don't know what's going to come of these 12 counts. Yeah. That's a lot. They're all in the UK. This is following the lawsuit that just concluded between him and Anthony Rapp, where the jury found that he was not guilty of battery. But you don't know what the outcome is going to be of these next dozen counts. And it's telling, at the very least, that this director was completely unconcerned with the liability it would present for his project, that any of these counts would end up being found true.
Multiple projects in Italy or whatever ran stuff with him. They seemed completely unconcerned. I don't know if that's just because Italy's a world away and they're just like, they're not as.
It's just a different culture, I guess.
Well, or they're not as concerned with celebrities' private lives, or they don't know about celebrities' private lives. I also found it very interesting that at least through the first 100 or so comments that I read through was a lot of support for Spacey.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
In the absence of, like, actual physical evidence and police reports, what we have on is just the sheer amount of claims against him is obviously insanely suspicious. But a lot of people here are saying, I have no, I don't know. They feel like the Anthony Rapp thing is like them saying oh, see, he's innocent. Well, no, it just means that they were never going to prove something.
It just means there wasn't enough evidence.
They were never going to prove something from 1986.
There are plenty of crimes that happen that cannot be proven, and therefore you can't be convicted of them. It's simple as that. It doesn't mean it's true or false. And that's up for your conscience, I guess, to decide based on the evidence that you see. But a lot of people are saying, if anything, for an actor of his level of prestige, where he used to be A-list, Oscar-worthy, that being a voice actor for a production company that's relatively small and is foreign is more evidence that he has been casted outside of Hollywood, and that he's still able to get work, but this is a fall from grace for him. So I just wanted to read this quote from the director of Control. He said that Spacey's embattled status was a consideration when casting, but he wouldn't say it was a concern. He is one of the greatest actors of our generation. His personal life aside, it's something I can't comment on and have no knowledge of. It's an opportunity to work with one of the acting greats. So he just saw this as self-interest only.
Yeah. Well,
he was going to use Kevin Spacey's name to get his project ahead.
That's where business and capitalism meets ethics, and you have to find your middle ground there, right? That's one of the reasons I criticize Hollywood a lot is that it's one of the, if not the most capitalist industry in the world, full of socialists and communists that want to talk about how evil money is. And this is a proof of the underbelly of the industry is far more brutal and far more interested in money than any amount of the Seth Rogen. Who's the one who went on with Gad Sad, who went on a Twitter exchange with Gad Sad, and they went back and forth about it, and he pointed out look, you're part of one of the most capitalist industries in the world, and you benefit from that. But on the underbelly, the people that are making these movies, the ones that have to make their money, it's why Disney's such an interesting example, a company that doesn't seem all that concerned about making money these days. The financiers, the one who really put the money up, your producers, they're the ones who want to see a return on their investment. So you have to wonder how they get to a point where, first of all, he's not even going to be seen on screen in this movie. He's going to be a voice on a telephone. So you're not even going to see his face. So how is his voice even that recognizable? It is. But I'm thinking of him as like Frank Underwood. I think it is
one of the reasons he has star power, at least.
So,
and the idea is interesting that it's this British politician. She's having an affair with the prime minister, and then her self-driving car gets hijacked, and he is, I'm presuming, the voice talking to her, trying to blackmail her and expose that she's having this politically advantageous affair.
Is this one of those things where it's it wasn't going to make any money anyway, so they're just, it's like a Hail Mary, it might get us enough to, there are clearly I take this comment section as proof that at least some of the public interest says that they don't care, because part of it's probably they're burnt out. They've had 5 years of Me Too, so the actual predators, the actual evil people, have blended together with the with the Johnny Depps and the people who are kind of just, we don't know if they're guilty, we don't know if they're innocent, the Brad Pitts, we don't know if they're guilty, we don't know if they're innocent. So the actual villains are the ones that benefit from this, because it's all been obfuscated and people throw their hands up. They don't have time to read this stuff all day. We do this for work. They don't have time to read about whether 19,000 different claims as to Kevin Spacey's affairs, whether any of that is true. So they just say, throw my hands up. Is it a good movie? I'll go see it. That's literally just kind of that's
the only thing you can do, because any artist or director or actor or actress is possibly a monstrous person at this point. So you have no choice but to separate the art from the artist if you don't want to lose your sanity.
Yeah. I make that distinction every day, at least as far as their how they speak to people on the internet. There's people with annoying beliefs that I think are super annoying all the time that I watch their stuff. I watched Glass Onion, loved it. Can't stand Ryan Johnson on Twitter, but that's a lot different than worlds away from actual physical crimes.
You can hold Star Wars against him, though.
Yes, you can hold The Last Jedi against him.
You can hold his work against him, but his Twitter is irrelevant to whether Glass Onion was good. And it was good.
It was. So it's just, it's weird. That's also, this was a kind of an aside, and it's not really connected to this. It speaks to the human desire to work. Like, he doesn't have to work. He doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, not really the human desire to work, but for him, the narcissist desire to get validation and affirmation and publicity.
But you see a lot of celebrities who don't need to work, who go through personal traumas or their own things, or they do things like this, and they still want to be out there doing things. And it's like, people aren't really designed to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, well, they didn't pick that profession for no reason.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
and
it's like,
according to MeToo, they are not designed to go die in a ditch somewhere just because the internet lambasted them for dubious claims.
Well, no. According to MeToo, they are, unless they're abusing children, and then in which case we have to see the gray area of things, and then then there's somebody that we can look at to the nuance, as they say.
I mean, the actual expectation is that you do go live in a barrel. Yeah. Like Diogenes, if you get accused of anything, you should basically fall off the face of the planet. Never speak again.
The original purpose of the most virulent form of cancel culture was that you don't work. Your family can't even talk to you anymore because you're every time they search your name on the internet, a bunch of vile stuff comes up about you. They want you to go into a ditch and die. Also, you should just kind of
beat yourself until you're bruised all over your body. That would be nice too.
Not understanding that the real monsters, the Kevin Spaceys, aren't going to beat themselves up or even worry about it because they're monsters. Regular people are the ones that suffer from that type of thing because they aren't bad people. Kevin Spacey has no compunction about being a shitty person.
Obviously. I mean, given those videos that he filmed.
The creepy Christmas videos.
Poking the fireplace. Yeah, I don't think he feels anything. Neither does Alec Baldwin.
Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.